This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Your hosts are Seth Jacobson and Patrick Heiler.
Chapter 33?
Yep.
Within the Weave. And our symbol is the snake and the wheel.
The Mickey Mouse.
Our symbol is Mickey Mouse.
It's definitely, I feel like that is how it's been referred to in the fandom for a while. Sort of the Mickey Mouse symbol. Because it's not, there's not a convenient name for it. And it's so prominent on all of the books and as the imagery of the Wheel of Time. That's what that image is.
Yeah. I'm flipping through my book right now because I'm just realizing that this snake and the wheel, whenever this copy came out, it's like smudged. It's like, it doesn't look, it's just like a silhouette.
Oh, it just looks like three dark circles.
Yeah. I do all my reading out of paperbacks.
I've always wanted the Wheel of Time tattoo, but I could never get it because people called it the Mickey Mouse symbol. And I couldn't get something that looked like Mickey Mouse tattooed on me.
I'll probably get more one day. I've thought about getting that, the Ouroboros and the wheel and like the spears and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know that symbol?
You've talked about getting that like touched up too, right? Or something?
The shield and spears?
Yeah.
Yeah, or like thought about getting it blacked out and then like in the negative space have something better done or something like that, but I don't know. It's also kind of cool because it was my first tattoo ever and totally unprofessional.
I also think it's cool because, I mean, it's how we got talking about it in this podcast in the first place.
Yeah.
So,
but that one's on my left forearm and it's empty. That forearm is empty. Anywho, should I read us in to chapter 33? From his saddle, Perrin frowned down at the flat stone, half hidden in the weeds by the roadside. This road of hard-packed dirt, already called the Lugard Road now, they were near the Manetheren Drell and the border of Murandy, had been paved once, long in the past, so Moraine said 2 days earlier, and bits of paving stone still worked their way to the surface from time to time. This one had an odd marking on it. If dogs had been able to make footprints on stone, he would have said it was the print of a large hound. There were
hound?
There were no hound's footprints in any of the bare ground he could see, where softer dirt on the verge might take one, and no smell of any dog's trail, just a faint trace in the air of something burned, almost the sulphurous smell left behind by setting off fireworks. There was a town ahead, where the road struck the river. Maybe some children had snuck out here with some of the illuminator's handiwork.
All right, first shorthand to Perrin's nose. Sulfur smell? Sulfur smell is dark hounds.
Like always, I think it's, yeah.
Oh, smell of something wrong that leaves no trail is gray men.
Oh.
And, he can smell fate, the Neverborn, of course, and Trollocs, and identify that smell.
The table shifted and the lamp turned off.
Oh, okay. My leg was on the table. I thought we lost power there for a second because the light cut out. So I was like, oh, shit, did we just lose internet?
I wouldn't be that surprised. It's like 95 degrees here in Portland today.
Yeah, it's hot.
Luckily, nobody has air conditioners here yet. Portland has not yet discovered the air conditioner.
There's a few window boxes. We're just not equipped for the heat in Portland.
It's not supposed to be this hot.
Well, we keep dumping the CO2 in the atmosphere and cooking ourselves.
Stop it.
Sorry.
No, not you, the lamp. So Moraine's been pushing them hard since leaving Jara, Perrin says. Or thinks, rather.
I want to make the point that the smell he smells is the dark hounds, and so are all these footprints in the stone.
Right. It just doesn't make any intuitive sense to him.
He's like, but dogs don't make footprints in stone. It must be like fossilized or something.
Yeah.
A rock just happens to have a footprint on it? No, that doesn't happen.
It's just random to him. Moraine's been pushing them hard since leaving Jara, and they're coming up on a new town. I kind of noted that Perrin's not excited to go there because of all the towns they've passed through and all the weird things they've seen.
Yeah, he does a pretty long description about the various things that happen on the trip. So there's a bit of a flashback in this chapter.
Yeah.
Like that Loyal totally loses himself while reading.
Yeah. Almost gets left behind because he's reading in the saddle.
I feel like that's something that almost everyone who reads these books can understand. Like trying to read and walk or read and ride something. Like,
Totally.
I've definitely gotten walked into a wall or gotten left behind because I'm trying to like get a book or something. Audiobooks have saved me from doing that these days.
I've missed a train before because I was sitting in a station reading. It's like, oh, well, I guess I'll get the next one. I'll read this part. There had been more reasons than bad dreams not to sleep well. They had found other signs left by Rand's passage. Between Jara and the River Bourne, there had been none Perrin could see, but when they crossed the Bourne, by a straight bridge arcing from one 50-foot river cliff to another, they had left behind a town called Sidon, all in ashes, every building. Only a few stone walls and chimneys still stood among the ruins. Bedraggled townspeople said a lantern dropped in a barn had started it. And then the fire seemed to run wild, and everything went wrong. Half the buckets that could be found had holes in them. Every last burning wall had fallen outward instead of in, setting houses to either side alight. Flaming timbers from the inn had somehow tumbled as far as the main well in the square, so no one could draw more water from it to fight the fires, and houses had fallen right on top of 3 other wells. Even the wind had seemed to shift, fanning the flames in every direction. There had been no need to ask Moraine if Rand's presence had caused it. Her face, like cold iron, was answer enough. The pattern shaped itself around Rand, and chances ran wild.
Yeah, so this is just great description of all the crazy stuff that's going on because of his Taviran influence.
As they track Rand, who's going cross-country toward Tyr. And, while I was reading these 2 chapters, I was trying to remember, from here on, does Rand travel entirely on foot, or does he get a boat? I can't remember.
I wanted to ask you the same thing. I'm pretty sure it's entirely on foot.
I think so, too.
We've also talked about the fact that he may be somehow using Teleron Riyadh to get ahead.
Yeah, Perrin mentions it to Moraine. He's like, we're not going to catch him. Like, if he lost his horse a week ago and we still can't outpace him, like, something's
going
happening.
on. And Moraine's like, nah, he's just a good runner.
I mean, I did have the thought also while I was reading that depending on the terrain, I feel like I could probably outpace a horse in bad terrain.
Also, if you consider the Aiel bragging that they can outrun horses...
And they can.
And Rand is clearly, half Aiel.
Yeah. And that's over a distance, of course.
Right, of course.
But, like, in the hot sun, in, like, shitty scree and fist-sized rocks or something, I bet I could outdistance a horse.
My only counter-argument is that Rand seems to spend a fair amount of time in these towns. Like, he, stays and plays the fiddle for a bunch of weddings. The flute for a bunch of weddings.
Yeah. I don't know. It's hard to explain. The only way that I could explain it, like I was saying, is that maybe if the terrain's not very good, the horses aren't as much of a boon as you would think.
I'm thinking that perhaps he is going to sleep, waking up in his dream, and perhaps, somehow entering in the flesh and then moving through the dream.
It's possible.
I don't know. But I did want to mention one thing before you read that quote. Perrin does mention a dream of his own. He says he did not dare sleep soundly, that even his lightest sleep was full of troubled dreams, like that odd one with Egwene and Hopper in it.
Yeah.
And that was the one where we saw him wrap himself in chains around a column, and Hopper is guarding him, and Egwene walks in.
Yeah.
And, I just like that cross-reference to a dream that we already saw.
Totally.
Yeah. From somebody else's perspective. And it just tells you that those dreams are real and interactive. And it tells you that Egwene was actually interacting with him, not with some dream image of him.
Right. This is where we find out that Lan had found Rand's horse and it had been mauled by wolves or wild dogs.
Or dark hounds.
Lan saw his footprints running away. So at some point, Rand was overtaken by dark hounds, and narrowly escaped somehow.
I think that's when he said the first time that, he realized steel wasn't enough and he hadn't been able to save his horse. I do think when he encounters the caravan and kills the woman.
Yeah.
And the gray man.
Right.
He's thinking about
losing his horse recently.
and how that happened. So he's thinking about that encounter with the Darkhounds.
But afoot or mounted, he seemed to be staying ahead of them.
And so, yeah, that was the question that we have is he doing it on foot, or is he somehow using Teleron Riyadh? Because we see him there.
Yes.
And that means he's either a Dreamwalker or he's somehow entering in the flesh.
Yeah, Sakan, it's not really highlighted very much in the series, but...
I do think Rand is a Dreamwalker.
Yeah, Egwene, Perrin, and Rand are all Dreamwalkers.
Perrin threw his bond to the wolves, but I think Rand and Egwene are both naturally Dreamwalkers, which would make sense because I do think of them as parallel heroes. Their entire journey has a lot of parallels in them. It's possible he's somehow using his Dreamwalking ability to enter Teleron Riyadh in the flesh and move forward while he's asleep. That's, I'm coming up with kind of a convoluted explanation for it.
Yeah.
And it's all based on an offhand comment that Moraine tosses out as speculation.
Right. She says, I could almost think he rediscovered traveling, but if he had, he'd already be in Tyr. We wouldn't be finding his tracks from yesterday,
Yeah, but they're not always able. Well, is Lan always able to follow his track? Or does it ever, disappear? Because Lan's a really good tracker, and he never really mentions that there's, gaps or anything.
I'm sure they can't always follow his trail. A little while later, Moraine and Perrin are talking, and she says, well, I have to make a choice here because we don't know exactly what Rand did after this. So, especially if you go through populated areas, it would be hard to say, to track a single person.
Well, and I think they said he's got that distinctive notch in his boot, so they can probably occasionally find a footprint here and there and verify that it's him, but they're not following a specific trail of footprints.
Right.
And, of course, they've got Lan, who can track a falcon in a cloudy sky.
Almost as good of a tracker as Nynaeve, as Ferengi says. And then we see kind of a succession where Perrin tells us a little bit about each town that they had passed through and all the different...
Ta'veren effects.
Ta'veren effects would be a phrase to describe that.
I think we have spent some time talking about this list before.
We totally have.
Without actually being on it and referencing it. Because it's such a cool list of chance and coincidence and tells us a lot about what Rand's powers are.
Yes.
But I'd also like to mention and remind you that Perrin is Ta'veren as well.
True.
And that comes into play before the end of this chapter.
Yeah. I guess I'll just give a quick rundown. So, Perrin tells us that in a little place named Willer, basically the spring had run dry some time ago, and it just started flowing again. So people were celebrating because they were getting ready to abandon the village, basically.
And then 3 untouched towns, and then one where the wells go dry. The exact opposite.
Yeah. Samaha, where every well in town had just gone dry the night before. Talan, when all the old arguments the village had ever known bubbled to the surface like overflowing cesspits a morning earlier, and it had taken 3 murders to shock everyone back to his senses. And finally, Fial, where the crops this spring looked to be the poorest anyone could remember. But the mayor, digging a new privy behind his house, had found rotted leather sacks full of gold, so no one would go hungry. No one Fial recognized the fat coins, with a woman's face on one side and an eagle on the other. Moraine said they had been minted in Manetheren.
I just love the little details of those stories.
Yeah.
These little coincidences and the happenstance and the...
And RJ doesn't always do that. He, gives us that one line to just be just in case you don't get it. Here's what Moraine tells us.
And then we get a little bit of philosophy here.
I thought this part was really interesting. Perrin is talking to Moraine. I'll read this little part. After Jara, I thought they were all so happy with their weddings. Even the White Cloaks were only made to look like fools. Fial was all right. Rand couldn't have had anything to do with their crops. They were failing before he ever came. And that gold was surely good with their need. But all this that town burning, and the wells failing, and that is evil, Moraine. I can't believe that Rand is evil. The pattern may be shaping itself around him, but how can the pattern be that evil? It makes no sense. And things have to make sense. If you make a tool with no sense to it, it's wasted metal. The pattern wouldn't waste. Lan gave him a wry look.
It's a part of the book, and one of the key parts of the last battle, is realizing that choice is super important.
Yes.
And if men don't have that choice, they aren't men.
And events aren't good or evil. They're events. And even Moraine says the creator is good and the dark one is evil, but I feel like I could argue that down even.
Right.
It's about balance. It's not about good and evil.
And so Rand is increasing the odds of things, rare things happening at both ends of the spectrum.
Right.
He's just making really weird things happen. There's not really, and then you get a lot of good and a lot of bad rather than a little good and a little bad.
Yeah. It's like any other natural event, is a hurricane evil? You can do
right.
things that we might call bad, but it's just a hurricane is a hurricane. It's not good or evil.
But I will say there is a special part about this for Rand in that he maintains balance across the entire world.
Mm-hmm.
So when the Dark One starts to influence his random chance, the Dark One basically increases the evil in the world by his bubbles of evil and all the influences he has. And that gives Rand more power because he suddenly creates, I'm raising my hands up to show levels, which you guys can't see. He suddenly creates all this good to balance out the evil of the Dark One. And so that's where you see him like opening the sacks of grain and they're all good all of a sudden. This is after Veins of Gold.
Yeah.
Basically, once Veins of Gold happens, he no longer is a balance. He's a counterbalance to the Dark One.
Right. Which I kind of want to point out again, because I like this about the series. Even that is like, I would hesitate to define as good or evil. It's like I would hesitate to define Rand as good or evil. He's like a balancing force. So it's almost more like a neutralizer.
He's a feedback loop. He's the pattern feeds back into itself, and if things get too evil, it births the dragon to counterbalance it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of systems in nature that exist that way. Homeostasis is a big part of it. The pH in your blood. You don't die because your body does a really good job of maintaining a very strict pH in your blood.
Mm-hmm. I'll read what Moraine says, because she says, "The creator is good, Perrin. The father of lies is evil. The pattern of age, the age lace itself, is neither. The pattern is what it is. The wheel of time weaves all lives into the pattern, all actions. A pattern that is all one color is not a pattern. For the pattern of an age, good and ill are the warp and the woof."
Did you look up warp and the woof?
I didn't, but I kind of wanted to. Doesn't it have to do with the alignment of how things are a loom?
Okay, I haven't looked it up, but I'm assuming that when you look at a piece of cloth, there are threads going perpendicular to each other.
Right.
And the ones going one way are the warp, and the ones going the other way are the woof.
I thought it was something like that.
So like X and Y axis, that sort of thing.
The warp are the threads that run lengthwise, and the woof are the threads that run across. And that makes a fabric.
Context there was pretty explicit.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm glad I read that too, because now that I'm thinking about it, good and ill are the warp and the woof. She's saying, like, if there wasn't evil, there wouldn't be a pattern. Yeah. Just as if there weren't good, there wouldn't be it's just a string then.
With only one direction.
Cool.
No choice.
Yeah. I don't have too much over the next page.
No, I don't either.
Basically, they arrive at Remen, a town called Remen.
Which is a typical port town on a river.
Yeah.
Seems like it has a little more traffic than most. They recognize Ogier.
Kind of, yeah, moderately prosperous. You can kind of tell by the way Perrin describes the buildings.
Mm-hmm. Maybe a little bigger than a standard town they'd come across.
Yeah. And as he enters, the hair on the back of his neck stirred as he scented something wrong.
That, I think, that I'm pretty sure are gray men. Because he mentions that it was the scent that he smelled.
Yeah, you just
Jara.
said that a minute ago.
Yeah.
Not the fireworks scent.
Nope.
And he would know, he even thinks know what a Myrddraal or a Trolloc smells like.
Right.
But this was something, what was the exact word? Wrong. We see that a bunch.
Yeah.
Something wrong.
But remember, the wrong smell is gray men.
Not a trollic or a fade, yet the stench had been every bit as sharp, every bit as vile. But whatever gave off that scent left no lasting trail, it seemed.
And again, that's the gray men vanishing trick, where he can catch a scent of them, but he can't smell them long term.
That's interesting. It's kind of like seeing them.
Exactly. Yeah, you kind of catch glimpses of them and be like, oh, there's 6 men coming. Wait, what? They have knives.
Yeah.
It's the smell version of that. Wait, what? And then gone again.
They walk into the town square, and rode into the town square. I have this little part marked to read too.
There's a lot of great quotes in this chapter.
Yeah. They rode into the town square. One of the big paving blocks had been pried up, right in the middle of the square, so a gibbet could be erected. A single thick timber rose out of the dirt, supporting a braced crosspiece, from which hung an iron cage, the bottom of it 4 paces high. A tall man, dressed all in grays and browns, sat in the cage, holding his knees under his chin. He had no room to do otherwise. 3 small boys were pitching stones at him. The man looked straight ahead, not flinching when a stone made it between the bars. More than one trickle of blood stained his face. The townspeople walking by paid no more mind what the boys were doing than the man did, though every last one of them looked at the cage, most of them with approval, and some with fear.
I gotta say, Gaul has to be one of my favorite secondary characters.
Yeah, and he's one that's with us all the way to the end.
All the way. He is with Perrin by his side for so much of the book, including guarding Rand with the wolves in Teleron Riyadh in the flesh.
Mm-hmm.
By himself, without Perrin, with no idea how to work Teleron Riyadh, except what he just learned. He is badass. And then there's lots to talk about with the relationship with Bane and Shiad that's going on in the background that I can't wait to get to.
Oh, yeah.
That whole relationship between the 3 of them is subtle and well done and in the background and complex.
I like Aiel relationships.
Oh, they're great. So Gaul really, really, might be, up there with Ruark for one of my favorite Aiel.
Yeah. Moraine made a sound in her throat that might have been disgust. There's more, Lan said. Come. I've already arranged rooms at an inn. I think you will find it interesting. Perrin feels that Gaul looks familiar. I thought that was a little funny. Later he thinks it's just because he's seen an Aielman before.
It's also because he looks like Rand.
Yeah.
I noticed at one point he's like, I've seen 2 Aielmen now. I was like, nope, you've seen 3.
They walk into the inn. Everybody's dressed fancy because there's a bit of a celebration with the Hunters for the Horn in town.
And the capturing of the savage horde.
Yeah. Tell you, there were 20 of them. We find out later there was 2.
That's an order of magnitude off. That's a big deal. Yeah, and we see, this guy isn't a terrible fighter.
Right. Aiel tells us that later, who we're about to meet.
Right. And clearly the fact that he killed 1 Aiel means he's actually probably a pretty decent fighter. But still, it took 12 of them to take down Gaul and one other guy.
Yeah, I think it was a woman.
Oh, was it?
Wait, was it? Maybe it was just a name and I thought it was a woman. Does anyone know? It's not that important, but the name is Saren, Sarien. Saren and I were careless. So that doesn't tell me anything. I just made an assumption when I read it.
I assumed it was another stone dog.
That's probably more likely.
Which would be a guy.
Yeah, I don't know. I saw the name Saren and for some reason I thought felt like it was a woman's name.
Oh, it does. It's confirmed an Aiel man in the Watt Encyclopedia. So, yeah.
Let's see. They walk in. The innkeeper's fat.
Oh,
so that's good.
I'm glad you mentioned that.
I always note it now. Master Andra, the innkeeper said, addressing Lan, and an Ogier.
He fawns over Moraine for a while.
And Moraine doesn't correct him.
No.
I like that she does that.
She's wearing really rich clothing. She is a lady, technically.
Oh, yeah, that's true. She's just a way higher rank than that.
Also an Aes Sedai. So, I don't know if I mentioned, I read Newspring again.
No, I don't think you did.
Yeah, I just listened to it on the audiobook.
Yeah?
During my other shift on Sunday.
Uh-huh.
some good information in there, especially about the Aes Sedai. As we get into the tower, it might be worth a reread because we see like Varen and Shiriam and all of them as novices and younger Aes Sedai.
I wouldn't mind that, reading that again. We still haven't decided when we're going to do... I think we roughly decided when we're going to do that one.
Yeah.
Publish order. So that's...
Years.
Like 2 years.
But I had a point, and now it's gone. Something about Moraine. Oh, her rank. She was a lady. She was actually almost a queen, the Queen of Cairhien, after Laemon was killed.
I always forget that.
The Aes Sedai tried to make her a queen, and that's why she ran off. One of the reasons she ran off to find Rand and ended up finding Lan.
Yeah.
Oh, she ran to find Rand, but ended up finding Lan. That's a tongue twister right there. A little bit of a poem.
I scoured the land looking for Rand. I talked to the innkeeper for a while. He talks about the hunters for the horn.
Which include Fael.
Yes. The hordes of Aiel savages that have been mercilessly assaulting the countryside. Which is to say, I sort of imagine they were just walking along.
Oh. Yeah, they just stumbled right into him. Gaul says later the two of them were walking and the others were downwind, and
they just didn't notice until they walked right in, and then
walked right into him, and then were overwhelmed because there were 12 of them, and they were unprepared.
Yeah.
I got some water here. I also have some whiskey.
Oh yeah, there's whiskey,
which I'm trying not to drink. We should refer to it as Usquai.
Usquai? Is that how we say it?
Because it's if you say whiskey with a big slur, it's whiskey, Usquai.
You know, I didn't realize that Usquai was whiskey until we started doing this podcast.
Did know it before the podcast, but not very long beforehand. That was definitely one of those facts that I was like, oh, of course, Usquai is whiskey.
It makes sense because they grow maize, but I always assumed it was tequila because
we think of them being as a desert people and growing cactus. But they talk about growing tomatoes and corn.
Yeah. Let's see, where were we? Talk to the innkeeper. Oh, the next thing I have of any real importance is Perrin thinking about Min's viewing an Aielman in a cage, a turning point in your life, or something important that will happen.
That's Min's viewing. And of course, I mean, we know this is where he acquires Gaul, chops some white cloaks into sausage, and meets his falcon.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, big turning point in his life. I mean, this is really where Perrin's independent story starts. You know, he sort of had a story that's been dependent on where is Rand going, what is Rand doing, where is Moraine going. You know, he's just been kind of following along the whole time. And this is really where he starts to acquire his own army, an army of two.
In a way. So Perrin has that thought. He thinks about the viewing and then asks the innkeeper about the Aielman in the gibbet on the town square. The plump man gave a start when his study of Perrin reached his face, as if, with a lady and an ogier present, he had just now noticed Perrin's yellow eyes. He would be your servant, Master Andra? He asked cautiously. I thought this was interesting that Perrin asked the innkeeper a direct question, and the innkeeper talks to Lan. Answer him, was all Lan said. Of course, Master Andra.
That's one of my favorite quotes, because it's so Lan. It's like, he doesn't give any more information than absolutely necessary. He acts offended by your question and is like, answer him. Deadpan silent.
I really liked it too. And it's kind of Moraine-y in a way, like what I was going on about before, where people meet Lan and Moraine and they make assumptions and Lan and Moraine just don't correct them.
Yeah.
This happens all the time. And
Lan does occasionally lie.
Yeah? I mean, I believe it.
How do you think they call him Andra?
Oh.
My name is Andra. He introduces Moraine as,
I think she says it sometimes too, but she always, she does it in the unlie way, like, some call me.
Yeah, you may call me.
Yes.
That's pretty typical. But I feel like Lan just says, this is.
Probably.
And then Moraine just nods and shuts up. It's helpful to have a warder that can lie. They don't talk about that with the 3 O's.
Answer him, was all Lan said. Yes, of course, Master Andra, but here's who can tell it better than myself. 'Tis Lord Orbam, himself. 'Tis he we have gathered to hear. A dark-haired youngish man in a red coat, with a bandage wound around his temples. I won't read the whole description, but using padded crutches. The left leg of his breeches cut away so more bandages could strap half his calf from ankle to knee. The town people think he's a hero. He's clearly almost died.
Well, I think he's milking it. I think the injury's not that bad. He's like wrapped himself up for sympathy.
I mean, I believe it based on this little bit of his character that we get. He's kind of a jerk. Furlan might have thought the man in the red coat could tell the story better, but he went ahead himself and tells the story that Lord Orban has been telling them.
And we never see Lord Orban again. He's just in this one very silly scene.
Kind of skimming over this. The next is like a little bit of chatter in the background. The parents just kind of noticing that I didn't really have much there until Lan talks to Lord Orban.
This is where he says, I saw one this side of the spine of the world, and now I've seen two.
Oh, yeah.
Because he ran into...
I remember the scene.
Urian.
That's it.
Thank you, Mackenzie.
Must be a common name in the Watt universe. Urian. It was the name of a false dragon in like 300 years after the breaking or something.
Interesting.
Oh, spelled differently with a Y, but still. And
then, obviously, Gaul is number 2. But, of course, number 0 was Rand.
Yes. That's 2.5 Aielman.
And here's where we hear that he's telling the story of 20 savages.
Yeah.
Not 20.
12 of you fought 20 Aiel, Lan asked in a flat voice. Orban straightened, wincing. In an elaborately casual tone, he said, Aye, you must expect things such as this when you seek the Horn of Valir. It was not the first such encounter for Gan and me, nor will it be the last before we find the horn, if the light shines on us. He sounded as if the light could not possibly do anything else. Not all our fights have been with Aiel, of course, but there are always those who would stop hunters if they could. Gan and I, we do not stop easily. Another approving murmur came from the townspeople. Orban stood a little straighter. Yeah, he is totally getting off on this. You lost 6 and took 1 prisoner. From Lan's voice, it was not clear if that was a good exchange or a poor one.
He just knows if they fought that many Aiel, they would have lost everybody.
Yeah.
He understands just how good Aiel are at fighting.
Exactly.
This is like boasting to like a Olympic athlete that you like broke the world record yesterday, and they're like, no, you didn't.
Lan's probing and knowing that he's lying, but not calling him out. Orban, especially when Orban responds to Lan and says, we slew the rest, save those who ran.
No.
That didn't happen, man. And Lan has fought against the Aiel, he knows.
I mean, technically that is true. They slew the rest, save the ones that ran. They slew one and nobody ran. That's a technically true statement.
I guess so. I didn't think of it that way.
Yeah, Moraine could totally get away with that one. Oh, I did want to talk a little bit about a paragraph before that, where Perrin notices a bandaged man muttering.
That's Orban.
Okay. Right. Duh. But his reaction to Orban's reactions, it's an interesting paragraph because often Jordan gives us the reaction, but doesn't tell you what's going on. So here, Perrin sees Orban's eyes widen at Loyal. Normally that's all he'd say is Perrin's eyes widen at Loyal, but we see what that means. It means he's seen Ogier. Perrin thinks that.
Yeah.
And so there's this little paragraph where we get a reaction and then a summary of what is actually going through the person's head.
Yeah, this was kind of cool. Perrin also, he's hearing things that other people aren't, and he's reading the room in a way nobody else can.
Mm-hmm.
Orban mentions that there are white cloaks in the town, or near the town, looking for the scattered Aielmen.
And these aren't connected with any of the previous groups that we know about. They seem to be just a random group of Aiel.
Yeah, because our POV white cloaks are still way up north somewhere.
Yeah, and they're probably heading to the Two Rivers at this point. Or I guess Fane hasn't gotten to them yet.
I think not quite yet. This is an eventful town. Loyal's deep voice drew every eye to him. How can you stand so much excitement? Thanks. Thanks, radio.
That was pretty good.
Yeah.
You went good. You went deep. That was nice. A nice Michael Kramer.
That's how I imagine it. Ah, friend Ogier, Verlin said, 'tis the way of humans to want excitement. How much I regret not being able to march to the shining walls. Why, let me tell you, our rooms. Moraine did not raise her voice, but her words cut the innkeeper short like a sharp knife. Andra did arrange rooms, did he not? Ah, lady, forgive me. Yes, Master Andra did indeed hire rooms.
Yeah, it's a shame this guy couldn't go fight at the Shining Walls because of bone spurs. I mean, a twisted back. That we get to see another character gets introduced in this chapter for the first time.
Yeah.
This is Fael staring at him because he doesn't fit, and she's smart enough to figure that out.
I liked that assessment. When in the next chapter, she's smart.
Also, he's cute.
At the top, he walks up the stairs, follows everyone. At the top, Perrin paused to look back. He heard the murmurs of Lady and Ogier down there. Could feel all those eyes, but it seemed to him that he felt one pair of eyes in particular. Someone staring not at Moraine and Loyal, but at him. He picked her out immediately. For one thing, she stood apart from the others, and for another, she was the only woman in the room not wearing at least a little lace. Her dark gray, almost black dress was as plain as the ship captain's clothes, with wide sleeves and narrow skirts, and never a frill or a stitch or fancy work. The dress was divided for riding, he saw when she moved, and she wore soft boots that peeked out under the hem. She was young, no older than he was, perhaps, and tall for a woman, with black hair to her shoulders, a nose that just missed being too large and too bold, a generous mouth, high cheekbones, and dark, slightly tilted eyes. He could not quite decide whether she was beautiful or not. As soon as he looked down, she turned to address one of the serving women, and did not glance at the stairs again, but he was sure he had been right. She had been staring at him. I love the scene in the next chapter where Perrin's like, there's this weird girl looking at me in the common room. Do you think she's a dark friend or something? And Moraine's like, no. You're just good looking.
But later Fael does make a point that, like, I know what an Ogier is. I recognized Aes Sedai. That means I automatically know what Lan is.
Yeah.
But you're clearly not a warder.
I would like to believe, though, that right in that moment, she's like, oh, who's the cute one?
Right. Oh, totally.
You know?
Right. And that's why she's spending so much time thinking about it. And Fael, I mean, I guess we should call her Mandarb for now.
Is that what she was going by?
Yeah. She was going by Lan's horse's name. And so when...
What does that mean again? Does it mean something in the old time?
Like something like Blade. Yeah, Blade. And it's just a great scene when she's like, I go by Mandarb. And Perrin just dies laughing. He's like, yeah, that's the horse's name. Really? I'm calling you something else. And then she lets him know she's his falcon. Because she says, well, call me Fael. Call me Ishmael. Call me Ishmael?
Isn't it something having to do with her uncle? Didn't her uncle call her that?
Yeah, or like her father. He called her my young falcon or something like that.
That's cute.
We know who her father is, of course. Davram Bashir, the great general.
Yeah, this is why I was thinking of it wrong. Her father is Davram Bashir, who is the brother of the king. Is that right? Or the brother of the queen? I can't remember.
Yes.
Of Saldea.
He's the uncle to the queen.
Fael's royalty.
She's the cousin of the queen.
Yeah. Tenobia, is that right?
And Queen Tenobia is a bit of a dunderhead, featherhead.
Well, luckily, she has an extremely talented uncle to run the show. Or brother, rather.
I get a little confused.
I could be getting this wrong, guys. Don't take what I say as gospel. Something like that.
But what that means is that Perrin has a pretty legit claim to the throne.
Right.
When the series is over.
Including his own huge tract of land.
Right. His own big part of Andor, plus possibly, I mean, certainly his children could be king of Saladar. Do they border each other?
They don't share a border, but they're, I mean, on the same side of the continent. I'm trying to remember Elaine and Perrin's agreement. I think that the two rivers they decide will be like it's part of Andor, but it's like kind of sovereign unto itself. Like it's run, how do you say? Kind of like Scotland and the UK. Like they run their own shit, but they're part of the group.
It's kind of like the East and West Roman Empire. They were part of each other, but had two brains.
Oh, that makes sense.
Or for those of you that have read Raymond Feist, that world is also split into like, that's why the king is called a duke, because he's the duke of this land that is somewhat independent, but also part of a larger kingdom.
Just find a map of the Wheel of Time map, and I like found one in Russian and one that was like a map of like what the countries used to look like. It's just not working. So it looks like Emmonsfield Berlin area is probably about.
You know what? I think they do share a border, because there's all that wilderness in Andor.
There's nothing really there.
That's where Perrin encountered the wolves, and that's the border between Saldea and Andor.
Yeah.
Which makes a lot of sense that Perrin would dominate that area, because it's where a lot of forest and wolves exist.
And like Aradoman is there, but it's west of like the Berlin Emmonsfield area. So there's a straight line to Saldea. And the river Arenelle runs between the two, runs between Berlin and Maradon.
And Elaine wants to get her kids married to Perrin's kids so that Andor is united.
Oh. It would make Andor and Saldea united.
And that would be one giant country, splitting the middle of the continent in half.
Yeah. I also, wild speculation, but all the lands west of the lands that will eventually become Perrin's are in utter chaos through the rest of the series. They're just, the government's falling apart. They can't feed their citizens. People are leaving. A lot of the reason Emmonsfield grows to be so big are from refugees from those areas come to Emmonsfield.
But most of those areas get taken over by the Shan-Chan.
Well, that's further north than I think their territory, really, because the Shan-Chan take control of like Tarabon, Altara, right? Amadisha, so like up to Emmonsfield, I think. Like, do they get as far as Almoth Plain?
Oh yeah, they're definitely on Almoth Plain.
Ah, well, anyway, the point I was kind of making is that so the only occupied land other than Saldea near Emmonsfield is Aradoman, which is falling apart.
Yes. By
the end of the series, so that may very well be absorbed into the Emmonsfield-Saldea alliance.
Right, and because it borders both of them.
Right.
So yeah, I could see just this Andor stretching, and that would give Andor a line all the way to the coast, which is always valuable.
I could say I've also been working hard, but I haven't gotten very much podcast done in the last week. Really anything, and I worked 3 days and hung out with Julia for like the next 3 days. Did ride my bike around in the sun a lot, sore and sunburnt, but only from fun stuff.
Been kind of crazy busy. We've been falling behind on a few things, including saying Patreon names.
Yeah.
So I wanted to catch up on that. I haven't been keeping up with the thanks. I wanted to make a special point of saying thank you to the people who keep donating month after month after month. We've read their name out like once, like 6 months ago maybe.
Oh yeah.
To just say thank you so much to those people. I really appreciate it that you keep coming back and keep supporting us.
And there have been a handful of people like from the beginning who have been just donating every month for, are we past a year?
Oh, we must be getting close now. I mean, we're definitely past a year of podcasting. I'm not sure I think we're past a year of having Patreon open.
I can't remember when we even opened it.
Nope.
But yeah, there have been a handful of people around, Evan Scott King. Welcome. Unless you changed your name and you're somebody I know. This was the first time I saw that one.
Well, welcome.
Yeah.
Oh, while I'm talking about patrons, I also want to know if you haven't received any merch. We just sent some out, and I've gotten 3 or 4 returns because of addresses.
Oh, I bet when I saw those, I was like, they probably moved apartments since then or something like that.
Something like that, because it's been a while. So I'll reach out to those people and get a message by. And I know I said I did this was going to do this the last time I sent out merch, and I didn't. But I will send out merch to anyone who hasn't received it because I have everything I need to put together the envelopes this time. So please send me an email at watspoilers@gmail.com and let me know if you haven't gotten merch, including your current address.
Yes, we'll take care of that.
And that'll be a priority for me over the next week.
Thanks, patrons.
So yes, thank you so much. So let's go through the names of the people who have donated since the last time we did this.
Okay. While Seth is looking that up, Seth just told me that Rafe Judkins posted about the Wheel of Time on Twitter again, just saying that he's been writing and working. I didn't actually look at the post. He just told me about it a few minutes ago.
Yeah, someone asked him what he was working on. He just said, I'm working on a bunch of stuff, but mostly the Wheel of Time. Lots of women throwing fireballs. But that is great news because it means the showrunner is dedicating a bunch of time to more scripting, which means hopefully someone's seen the preliminary script and given him the green light to go forward. So, it's a bit of a vague hint, but we're hoping that that's really going to grow into something here.
I wonder if Harriet's involved with the script. We should get in touch with Jason Denzel.
Yes, we should. Not that I think we'll be able to get any information out of him. He was pretty hush-hush about what he knew.
He probably knows stuff.
I think he knows more than we're...
He seemed... Maybe coy is not the right word, but...
There were certain questions that he kind of shut up when he was asked. That's all I'm going to say. Yeah, Harriet did say she'd seen the script and liked it. And the fact that he's still working means that he's been writing more since then. So, yeah, he'd let us know if we could spread it around, and we'd keep to that. Whatever Jason told us, and however, if he said don't let anyone know, I wouldn't tell you.
Yeah, because being on the in on that would be just too cool. I can't mess that up.
As we know, in today's media environment, access is everything.
Yeah. And in Patrick and Seth's dreams, they'll call us to consult, and that will be how we make a living for the rest of our lives. We'll just talk about fantasy books.
I really want to be on set being like, no. That's not how Maureen would act. Listen, because she actually really likes Tom, and I know that's not obvious in the books, but there's actually a bit of a flirtatious thing there that you need to put underneath their interaction.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's our secret dream, is to just be consultants on the TV show as experts, as, subject matter experts.
No longer a secret. 2 small-time podcasters launched into fandom fame after their outstanding consultation on the Wheel of Time TV project.
On the cover of Time or something like that. Just beard everywhere.
Yeah. Don't make your book into a TV show without talking to us first.
That's definitely true.
Yeah. We know what we're talking about.
And then when we get in private, we'll turn to them and be like, yeah, so you actually want to talk to a radio? She's our reference. So.
We'll cut you in, dude. All right, sorry for derailing us.
Oh no, we've had a lot to talk about. I feel like the TV show announcement, patrons, our schedule, which is chaotic, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, everything's just up in the air right now, but we're releasing the podcast basically on schedule, so that's kind of our baseline. Like, we can shift everything else around as long as we're...
Are we actually keeping up with releases?
Yeah, roughly.
Roughly, yeah.
We're probably a little less than 3 a week right now. averaging.
That's always the goal, is to release 3 a week.
Yeah.
I've definitely been slipping on that.
That's a lot of work.
But I caught up a little bit and then fell behind again. So.
Yeah, haven't been doing my social media stuff, especially over the last week.
So we need to figure out, we're still going to stick to the Saturday, Thursday schedule for Watt Spoilers, but we do need to find another date for Mistborn Spoilers because we're both working Monday nights now.
I feel like it's going to end up being Friday, or it's going to have to be Friday or Sunday.
Yeah.
Because we both work Monday nights. I mean, I work Saturday, Sunday, but I'll be doing brunch generally. So I'll be back home so I can do anything those nights. Yeah, it's probably going to have to be Friday, which is sort of lame because Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Well, I mean, we just go out afterwards. Oh, you mean doing 3 days in a row?
Yeah. I know you weren't terribly keen on that.
Yeah, maybe
it may be the only way.
What if we moved Watt Spoilers Day to Sunday? So as you guys can see, the schedule is up in the air.
Yeah, we're having this conversation right now.
This is literally the conversation. So we'll let you know what we finally decide. But we don't need to have this on air.
And for all of you who listen to Mistborn and Watt Spoilers, sorry we haven't been on Discord nearly as much as we'd like in the last 2-3 weeks.
It's also, different job. It was a lot easier to be on Discord when I was working in an office than when I'm working in a kitchen.
Yes.
Because before I could just have Discord open in the background and be talking all day. Now it's like I check in once in the morning and once at night.
Yeah. It doesn't matter when you work because you can, we used to be able to record any night. We'd be free.
And it might be possible to record in the mornings, but we're terrible at that. So It's probably not going to happen. That's the goal. We'd love to make a living doing this, and we're getting there. You guys have really come a long way towards getting us there. Have I still not read the names yet?
No.
This is terrible. All right. We're having, like I said, a lot of trouble getting started tonight. Okay. I'm going to start on June 1st. So, Jake Singer.
Thanks, Jake.
Cassandra Orta.
You're the best, Cassandra.
Thanks for hanging out in Discord. John Voyatis.
Strong attempt. I mean, we do
I got
what we
the
can.
first 2 syllables there. The third one went off into left field.
Voyatis. We appreciate you, John.
John B. You rock. Brian Dana.
Thank you, Brian.
John Torbeck.
We appreciate you, John.
Caleb O'Brien.
Thank you, Caleb.
Aradia Farmer.
Farmer?
I think we did that joke last time.
Aradia? I think we did, yeah.
Aradia, thank you. Aaron Johnson.
Thank you, Aaron.
Julia Meister. I definitely read some of these names before. Brendan Smith.
We appreciate Brendan and Julia.
Ken Peterka.
Thank you, Ken.
Christopher Bodegitter.
I'm gonna head nod to that pronunciation.
And a huge thank you to Have Knowledge Will Share, aka Jack of the Shadows on Discord.
Yeah, I think I was just responding to a message from him. I think he's going to be in Portland sometime soon.
Well, come see us.
Yes, I said, let us know when you're going to be here. He wrote me a message on Discord saying that he might like to do a video interview with us.
Sure.
And I just said yes. He said, like, I'm going to have all this camera equipment. He's like coming to a family get together and he wants to interview all the old people and just like ask, get stuff on video. Mm-hmm. And he was like, so I'm going to be there with all of my equipment in Seattle and we're going to go to Portland anyway. Would you want to do this thing? It would probably be, you could put it on your YouTube channel or something.
Perfect.
And I was like, yeah, that's awesome.
We'll definitely do that. That sounds like fun.
Yeah. And we're always down to get a beer.
Yeah.
If you just email us or hit us up on Discord, if you're coming to our neighborhood, like we're probably out drinking anyway. So
it's very true. That's the issue with getting a free beer after every shift that you work. It starts the drinking.
Yes.
And then you're like, oh, I'll have one more. I'll just go up to a bar and have another one.
I know some people do this, but I don't really understand how you have one beer and then carry on with the rest of your day. Like if I start drinking, that is the end to me being productive.
I actually did that today. I got down after my shift, sat down, had a single beer, and then was able to come here and work. It's actually amazing how much, after you've been on your feet all day, the sugar in the beer can actually help. It gives you some energy back.
Gives you a little shot of calories. And
the alcohol helps numb some of the pain. Because you're hurting. I mean, if you're on your feet all day, by the end of the shift, something hurts.
The pain of our working class psyches.
I still don't have that one yet.
Couple more names in July so far. We're recording this on the 12th. It'll probably be out in a couple weeks. But
Matt Rumsey.
Thank you, Matt.
It's a great last name. Evan King.
Appreciate you, Evan.
And Van Doodle.
Van Doodle. Thank you for your donations, guys.
You guys have been great. And if you have donated before July 12th and you haven't heard your name called out, let us know.
Yes.
Again, that email is watspoilers@gmail.com. You might think we're done with the preamble. You'd be wrong.
Or post-amble, perhaps. I think this usually goes at the end of the episode.
That's true. We do try and cut this into the end. There's one more thing to talk about.
What?
Binding the Shattered Harp.
Oh, yeah. Did he send you a message too? I just got back to him a minute ago.
Yep.
I haven't watched it yet. I said I was going to. I'll do it.
We saw
after
it
this
in the airport.
Oh, yeah. Like an unedited version? Or like.
I mean, that was basically
a
rough edit. And, I think it gives you a good idea. You don't see the polish on it. You didn't see the channeling.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But I think it gives you a good idea of what it was like and what it felt like. And, it was...
Yeah, it was a really fun... Everyone who listens to this, if you like The Wheel of Time enough to listen to this podcast every week, then you should probably go find that on YouTube and check it out. It's like a really cool fan short video... Wheel of Time
it's
universe.
So short, like, just go watch it. Like, I don't have to tell you much about it. I'd rather tell you about the creator.
Yeah, guys.
So we're going to have him on as a guest.
Cool.
We'll have to schedule that, but I'd like to get him on.
www.bindingtheshatteredharp.com.
That works. Or just Google Binding the Shattered Harp.
Yeah.
Or come to the Discord and ask anybody who will be able to point you to it.
Definitely go check that out. And face it, you probably already spent like 25 minutes a day watching those dumb videos on Facebook as you scroll through. So
sure, this is actually
this is actually worthy content.
Yeah. It takes place between a warrior and an Aes Sedai.
Yes. Cool drone shots. I was pretty impressed by that.
Oh, the cinematography is great.
At first I was like, how did they do that? And I was like, oh, yeah, everybody has these things now.
Right. Those are the kind of shots that you could only get in big budget movies with a helicopter and incredible camera equipment. And now it's like a GoPro on a drone.
Yeah, now you just order one on Amazon and you get it like at the end of the day.
Yeah, it was a nice bit of little immersion into the Wheel of Time, a visualization. And yeah, if you're listening to us,
you'll like it.
You'll like it.
Google it.
I would say the one thing that I am upset about is the fact that it was just one scene. I wanted like another hour of it. And it also, and I want to talk about like how much work went into it, but it shows you what someone can do with dedication to make the world come alive.
Yeah, totally. There's not that many fan shorts out there, but it's my favorite of everything floating around on the internet.
Mm-hmm. I will say the one they did,
the one with Matt and Rand.
Yeah,
I feel it. That was my favorite.
That was very well done.
Yeah,
and that involves a fairly large cast and
Flight from the Shadow. I think that's right.
That was also very well done.
Yeah, everybody makes fun of the Red Eagle thing, Catstereth. We sure do.
Yeah.
It's actually a patron special episode of us just sitting in a hotel room at JordanCon watching that, drinking and making fun of it.
Yeah, we MST3K'd it. I do think we should make that maybe a... I don't know if I want to make it a tradition of roasting the Winter Dragon every year.
Honestly, after I heard Denzel talk about it a little, I was like, I totally get it. Like, I know I feel bad making fun of it a little.
I don't.
Oh, he was like, they had to do something, so they just made something.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, I understand, but
like, that's Sakami behavior, and it deserves to be made fun of.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?